the St. Charles streetcar is rattling downtown. The Endymion Parade winds through the streets of Mid-City. And as a Bears fan, this is hard to admit, but a son of a New Orleans, Eli Manning even won an improbable Super Bowl.
That's right.
We need a quarterback in Chicago. Is there another Manning brother somewhere? We've been having some problems. Most importantly, with each passing day, with each student who goes back to school, with each business that reopens its doors, with each worker who puts in a shift, New Orleanians are reclaiming their future and showing America just what can be done in this country when citizens lift up their communities. What we see in New Orleans is one of the central premises of my campaign, and that is change in America does not happen from the top down. It happens from the bottom up because we are hardworking. We are a hardworking and generous people, ready to sacrifice on behalf of future generations. And when we join together, black, white, Hispanic, Asian, Native American, young, old, rich, poor, when we understand that we are the United States of America, then there is nothing that we cannot do as a people. But of course, there's another side to this story, because we know that this city, a city that has always stood for what can be done in this country, has also become a symbol for what we could not do. To many Americans, the words New Orleans call up images of broken levees, water rushing through the streets, mothers holding babies up to avoid the flood, and worse, the memory of a moment when America's government failed its citizens. Because when the people of New Orleans and the Gulf Coast extended their hand for help, help was not there. When people looked up from the rooftops, for too long they saw an empty sky. When the winds blew and the floodwaters came, we learned that for all of our wealth and our power, something wasn't right with America. We can talk about what happened for a few days in 2005, and we should. We can talk about levees that couldn't hold, about a FEMA that seemed not just incompetent, but paralyzed and powerless, about a president who only saw the people from the window of an airplane instead of down here on the ground, trying to provide comfort and aid. For this presidency. Sometimes people ask me, why is it that you attract such a big crowd? I say, well, you know, people are ready for change. They understand this extraordinary moment. Hopefully, occasionally my words can inspire, but part of it has to do with the fact that when folks go into the polling place in November to select the next president of the United States, they know that no matter what else happens, the name George W. Bush will not be on the ballot. The name of my cousin, Dick Cheney, will not be on the ballot. I was really embarrassed embarrassing when that news came out. And when they do these genealogical surveys, you hope that you're related to somebody cool. Dr. Francis, or Willie Mays, or Dick Cheney, that's a letdown. Anyway, we can talk about a trust that was broken. The promise that our government will be prepared, will protect us, and will respond in a catastrophe. But we also know the broken promises did not start when a storm hit. They did not end there. When President Bush came down to Jackson Square 2 weeks after the storm, the setting was spectacular, and his promises soaring. We will do what it takes, he said. We will take as long as it takes to help citizens rebuild their communities and their lives. But over 2 years later, those words have been caught in a tangle of half measures, half-hearted leadership, and red tape. Dr. Cohen described it aptly while we were talking outside. He said, it is a tale of two cities. A tale of two cities. Yes, parts of New Orleans are coming back to life. But we also know that over 25,000 families are still living in small trailers. That thousands of homes sit empty and condemned. And that schools and hospitals and firehouses and police stations remain shut. We know that even though the streetcars run, there are fewer passengers. That even though the parades sound their joyful noise, there is too much violence in the shadows. To confront these challenges, we have to understand that Katrina may have battered the levees, but it also exposed silent storms that have ravaged parts of this city and our country for far too long. Right. The storms of poverty and joblessness, inequality and injustice. Those are the storms that swirled before Katrina hit. When I was down in Houston visiting evacuees a few days after Katrina, I met a woman in the Reliance Center who had long known these storms in her life. She told me, and I quote, "We had nothing before the hurricane. Now we got less than nothing." We had nothing before the hurricane. Now we got less than nothing. I think about her sometimes. I think about how America left her behind before the storm. I wonder where she is today. America failed that woman long before that failure showed up on our television screens. We failed her again during Katrina. And tragically, we are failing her for a third time. And that needs to change. And that's one of the reasons I am running for President of the United States of America. To restore our trust with her. It's time for America to rebuild trust with the people of New Orleans and the Gulf Coast. When I am president, I will start by restoring that most basic trust, that your government will do what it takes to keep you safe. The words "never again," spoken so often in those weeks after Katrina, must not fade to a whisper. The Army Corps of Engineers has rebuilt the levees that were most damaged by the storm, but funding has sometimes stalled, and New Orleans remains unprotected. We can't gamble every hurricane season, and that's why when I am president, we will finish building a system of levees that can withstand a 100-year storm by 2011, with the goal of expanding that potential defense against a Category 5 storm. Let's get it done when I'm president of the United States of America.